Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the regularly scheduled meeting of the Board of Public Works for today, Monday, June 5th, 2017.
Commissioner Rivas, James, and Jacinto are present. President James, we have a quorum. May we start with Bureau introductions, please, starting with Bureau of Contract Administration.
Good morning. Frank Rinaldi with the Bureau of Contract Administration.
Good morning, Ollie VC, LA Sanitation.
David Rivera, Bureau of Street Services.
Good morning, Asad Al-Najjar, Bureau of Street Lighting.
Good morning, Ted Jordan, Public Works General Counsel.
Fernando Campos, Executive Officer. President James, we do not have any speaker cards under general public comment. We have no commentary under the Neighborhood Council comment section. We did receive speaker cards on items 1, 2, and 3 for today's agenda.
Okay, thank you. We'll close the general comment, general public comment, as well as the Neighborhood Council category of commentary. Is there a second to my motion that we approve the meeting minutes from the meeting of Friday, May 12th, 2017 by Commissioner Rivas? Any objection? Without objection, we will approve those meeting minutes. Agenda item number 1. Bureau of Engineering, Council District 1, above ground facility variance and hardship waiver adjacent to 1090 West Wilshire Boulevard, recommending that the board first approve the request for a variance from the height limitation requirements of the AGF ordinance per Los Angeles Municipal Code LAMC section 62.08 VB. Secondly, approve the request for a hardship waiver from the below grade requirement of the LAMC section 62082A. And 3, authorize AT&T Mobility to install a 30-foot high concrete monopole in the public right-of-way adjacent to 1090 West Wilshire Boulevard. Mr. Ledoux on number 1.
Good morning. My name is Jeff Ledoux. I'm with Bureau of Engineering Central District. This is AT&T Mobility Cell Tower, as said, located at 1090 West Wilshire Boulevard. It is in the Central City West Specific Plan. Planning Department recommendation on this is actually no recommendation. They do not have jurisdiction for utilities within the public right-of-way, so they did not comment, either approve or deny. They just said no recommendation. This is in CD1, Gilbert Cedillo. They also are remaining neutral. I received no emails or phone calls, either pro or con. On this particular item, it is zoned commercial, and that's about it.
Okay. What type of, look, this, not to be a judge of aesthetics too much, but Mr. Ledoux, this is not one of our most attractive above ground facilities. What is this one going to provide?
What does this one look like?
No, what's it going to provide? What service does the community get from agenda item number 1 making its way into the public right-of-way?
Basically, this is a small cell tower. It's to provide coverage and backup capacity for the downtown area.
Okay, so is it, and I'll ask AT&T because I have Luke Snyder from Synergy. Mr. Snyder? Or Mr. Pellis? Either one? We have a couple of these this morning and they look the same. And I'm going to speculate, but I might be right. Is this because we have a number of additional residents moving to downtown LA that the demand on the grid, if you will, is getting more pronounced?
Good morning. Yes, that's correct.
And you're Mr. Snyder?
Correct. Sorry,
Okay,
Luke Snyder with Synergy Engineering, representing AT&T.
Okay.
Yes, this small cell network being deployed within downtown LA is for the coverage and capacity. The increase in the cell phone usage, cell phones, smartphones, it's really geared towards that type of network.
Okay. And then could you just cover, just summarize for us the attempts for any co-location on other local apparatus around the area for number one?
Correct. Well, typically, as part of the search process, we try to utilize existing infrastructure. That would be wood utility poles or even Bureau street lighting poles, which we have a number of nodes within downtown LA that do utilize existing infrastructure.
Okay. But on this one, those attempts, for whatever reason, did not pan out, and that's why the request for the monopole?
Correct. A new monopole is our last resort.
Right. So, as I'm just thinking, because we're starting to see a number of these, once this gets approved this morning, if it gets approved, and the new monopole is installed, would AT&T be willing to provide, or would AT&T be able to use that monopole for attaching other apparatus as the desire or the need or technology increases for use of or demands of other wireless communications? In other words, can that pole be used as a source for attaching other AT&T apparatus in the future if needed?
I don't believe with this type of design, AT&T would be adding additional equipment to that pole.
Okay. Could you if you wanted to and we wanted you to?
I need to go ahead and check on that, but I do believe that being able to use this monopole, create the infrastructure in there, that once we are able to progress over to the 5G network, that we'd be able to go ahead and reconfigure, reskin in our terminology, that pole to be able to accommodate that additional service.
Okay, better way to, that's because you work in the industry and I don't. Better way to describe what could happen. Okay, all right, thank you. Commissioner Jacinto.
Thank you, President James. Mr. Snyder, can you, for the record, describe the search ring? We have a couple of items here, and it's yours. And describe for the record how much of an area that this monopole will serve.
Typically, with this type of design, a small cell network, small cell antenna, it typically covers about 200 to 300 feet.
Radius.
Correct.
And thus the rationale for multiple placements in the build-out for the whole entire technology infrastructure, correct?
Correct. That's why there's a lot of nodes that are being proposed so close together, because they need to speak to each other. And if they're spaced too far away from each other, they won't connect. And if they're too close, then they overlap, and it doesn't necessarily meet AT&T's coverage objectives.
So the overlap is not good either.
Correct.
It's sort of like just being adjacent and covering it without much overlap.
That is correct.
Understood. Thank you.
Okay. Commissioner Rivas.
My question is related to co-locations. Like, I see there's a street light there. Did that co-location not work because of the height, or was there something else about the street light that wouldn't work for co-locating the small cell there?
Well, there's a couple things. I'm not sure, 100% sure what street light you're referring to, but for the most cases, if it's a street light, we will attempt to reserve it with the Bureau of Street Lighting. There are several times where there's an existing carrier already reserved that pole. There's also, if there's any type of traffic signal equipment, as simple as a push button, a pedestrian push button, we can't utilize those. Anytime there is a service area light or even a camera, BSL does not allow those type of poles to be utilized.
There's also, I apologize, there's also the component for the historically designated street lights.
Yes,
those
of course, yeah.
we're not allowed to.
No, I'm just looking at the photo of the after installation, you know, where the monopole would be, and I see a street light, but I wasn't sure it's reserved, or is it because of your height?
Well, typically, we're 30 feet is probably the average of the height for this type of installation. But if I'm looking at the same picture that you are here, there's a street light in the background.
Yes.
Yes, that's a traffic signal in which we're not allowed to attach to.
Oh, I see. Okay. Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Any further questions on number one? I don't have any further questions on number one. Commissioner Sintos made a motion that we adopt agenda item number one. I'll second it. Any objection? Without objection, we will adopt agenda item number 1. Any issues sending number 1 forthwith? We'll send number 1 forthwith. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Agenda item number 2, and gentlemen, I'm going to assume as you sit down that some of the answers, I'll just get clarification on the record that some of the same questions relate to agenda item number 2. Council District 14, above ground facilities variance, 1060 South Hill Street on the 11th Street side of the lot, recommending that the board, 1, approve the request for a variance from the height limitation requirements of the AGF ordinance per Los Angeles Municipal Code, Section 6208VB, and 2, authorize AT&T Mobility to install a 30-foot high concrete monopole in the public right-of-way adjacent to 1060 South Hill Street on the 11th Street side of the lot. Mr. Ledoux on number 2.
Once again, it's an AT&T Mobility small cell monopole located at 1060 South Hill Street on the 11th Street side. It is in CD 14, which right now is opposing any monopoles in the downtown area. This is in a residential zone. Nobody appealed it. I did not get any emails or phone calls pro or con on this one. It is not in an undergrounding zone.
Okay, well, Jeff, you raised an interesting, so I went forward with number 2 today. I thought that we hadn't heard anything back on CD 14 as to this one. Number 3, I just spoke to Film LA this morning, and number 3, I'm going to continue for 2 weeks for Film LA to join the discussion. But number 2 was not an issue on that end. Is number 2 an issue for CD 14?
As far as I'm aware, CD 14 has not released its opposition to cell sites in its council district.
Okay, well, I thought we were going to be able to approve number 2 today, so.
I mean, you know, we had a meeting with Nate Hayward of CD 14 with several different industry reps there, AT&T Mobility itself, and the basic onus was placed upon CD 14 to talk with DWP and with Bureau of Street Lighting to see if something further could be done to eliminate monopoles, but the onus was on them, not on the carriers themselves.
Okay, so as far as you know, they are still opposing these?
As far as
Okay.
I'm aware of, yes.
Then let's hold 2 and 3 over today. Well, 3 I want to continue, but let's hold 2 over. I'm going to try and communicate with CD 14 while the meeting is in place to see what's going on.
I would appreciate that because one of the things that CD 14 has been doing is obviously a blanket opposing of this, and there are some sites where there's no reason to oppose it. One is on DWAP Road, the side of the DWP building. It's open there. There's no buildings anywhere close to it except for DWP and stuff like that. So they aren't discriminating how they're using their opposition to these.
Okay, well, all I can deal with today is what's on the agenda.
Right.
You can have added communications. Maybe we can offline on some of these others. But right now I've got 2 and 3 to deal with as well. So for number 3, I'm going to continue number 3 to June 19th. And that's because of a request from Film LA to join the discussions. But Film LA was not concerned with number 2. So number 2, I'm going to see if I'm going to check with CD 14, see if we can go forward on number 2, or if they want more time on number 2 for this co-location issue. Okay? But number 3 will hold until June 19th. Number 2 will hold for a little while, and we'll go to agenda item. So thank you, Jeff. Yes. Oh, I'm sorry, Commissioner Asinto.
I just had a question. Jeff, can you tell us, because obviously we're bound by the shot clock on these 2, do you know approximately where we are on items 2 and 3 in terms of the shot clock?
This one was applied for on June 10th. So we're in, January 10th. So you've got February, March, April, May, which is about 120 150, I'd have to look and see because it depends on whether their application was complete, but we're around 150 days right now.
Okay, so as we're close to the shot clock, then if you could just confirm those dates, as we want to be able to be within the statutes of the ordinance and be able to take action. Mr. Jordan, I understand that we are, what happens just as in terms of the shot clock, sir? If the shot clock runs out and there's no decision made?
Then, if pressed, the site could be deemed approved
By default.
by default under California law.
So it would behoove CD 14 to accelerate their involvement while they can stay involved.
Most definitely.
Okay. Well, I can communicate that as well. Excellent point, Commissioner Cinto. Thank you. Which I will communicate as well. So hold tight, Mr. Ledoux.
Okay.
Thank you. We're going to continue number 3 to June 19th. Number 2, we're going to deal with in a moment. Number 9, while we're continuing things, there's been a request by the Bureau of Street Services to continue number 9 1 week to Monday, June 12th, 2017. Is that correct, Dr. Campos?
That is correct.
Okay, so number 9 will be continued. Authority, and number 8, Authority for Expenditure, Innovative Construction Solutions Incorporated. Office of Accounting and the Bureau of Sanitation requesting board approval and execution of an authority for expenditure in the amount of $45,768 to provide funds for the disposal of approximately 400 tons of stockpiled contaminated soil from CLARTS, the Central Los Angeles Recycling and Transfer Station facility located at 2201 East Washington Boulevard. Are there any questions on number 8? Is there someone here from the Bureau on number 8? Go ahead.
Hi, good morning. My name is Adriana. I'm with LA Sanitation. So LA San is requesting that the board approve and execute an authority for expenditure, AE, to the vendor Innovative Construction Solutions. As stated before in previous board meetings, during excavation activities for the Clark Stormwater and Safety Improvements Project, approximately 400 tons of contaminated soil were excavated and stockpiled on site. A 10-point composite sample was collected and sent to a professional lab for analysis. The amount of lead in the soil sample was found to be above the threshold limit concentration, TTLC. So the lab performed a soluble threshold limit concentration, STLC, and toxicity characteristic leaching procedure, T-clip test, on the sample in order to classify the soil as RCRA or California hazardous waste per the federal and state hazardous waste criteria. Since the lead concentration of the sample exceeds the STLC limit, but not the T-clip limit, the soil is classified as California hazardous waste. This contaminated soil will be loaded on 20-ton dump trucks and transported to Buttonwillow landfill for proper disposal. Per the health and safety plan for managing contaminated soil, personnel with 40-hour hazardous waste operations and emergency response, or in other words, HAZWOP training certification, must maintain the stockpiles covered with visqueen sheeting at all times. However, CLARTS does not have the HAZWOP certified personnel to remove or maintain the soil stockpiles. Therefore, the contaminated soils must be disposed of off-site by a licensed hazardous waste hauler to avoid exposure. In addition, operations needs access to areas behind these stockpiles, but they are interfering with work that needs to be completed. The vendor services are deemed to be vital to meet the city's commitment to protecting the public health and environment, maintaining safe work environments, and efficient operations. So again, LA San is requesting that the board approve and execute an authority for expenditure to the vendor Innovative Construction Solutions for the disposal of approximately 400 tons of contaminated soil from CLARTS to Buttonwillow landfill.
Any questions at all on agenda item number 8? Thank you for the explanation. I thought it was helpful, as well as the explanation in the actual application. I'll make a motion that we adopt agenda item number 8. Is there a second? By Commissioners Davis and Rivas. Any objection? Without objection, we'll adopt agenda item number 8.
Okay,
Any
thank you so
issues
much.
sending number 8 forthwith? We'll
Thank
send
you.
number 8 forthwith. Thank you, ma'am. Agenda item number, we have 5, 6, and 7 that are just some requested contract acceptance. Let's do number 7, contract acceptance, 2nd Street Emergency Tunnel Repair, West End. Mr. Smith, recommending that the board accept the construction order. Go ahead.
Good morning, Chris Smith, Bureau of Contract Administration. 2nd Street Emergency Tunnel Repair was awarded June 9, 2016 and completed July 28, 2016. The scope of the work was to remove loose tiles in the 2nd Street Tunnel to keep them from falling on the traffic. The work was done off an on-call list, so the emergency nature of it didn't require any outreach, and there are no unresolved financial or property issues with this contract. The Bureau recommends acceptance.
Any questions on agenda item number 7? I'll make a motion that we adopt agenda item number 7. Is there a second by Commissioner Davis? Any objection? Without objection, we will adopt agenda item number 7. Any issue sending number 7 forthwith? We'll send 7 forthwith. Agenda item number 6, Council District 4, contract acceptance, 1680 Sunset Plaza Drive, emergency bulkhead, recommending that the board accept the contract. Mr. Smith on number 6.
This contract was awarded April 26, 2016 off the emergency geotechnical on-call list to Kiewit Company. The work was to shore up a street, building a bulkhead, and replacing some damaged pavement adjacent to that. Because of the emergency nature of the work, there was no outreach requirements, and there are no unresolved property or financial issues. Bureau recommends acceptance.
Any questions on number 6? Is there a motion on number 6 by Commissioner Cento, seconded by Commissioner Davis? Any objection? Without objection, we'll adopt agenda item number 6. Any issues sending number 6 forthwith? We'll send number 6 forthwith. Agenda item number 5, contract acceptance, sidewalk repair program package number 9, recommending that the board accept the construction order. Mr. Smith?
Yes, this contract was awarded April 23, 2015 to John S. Meat Company and completed June 2, 2016. The scope of the work was replacing damaged sidewalks around city facilities. The contractor was off of the on-call geotechnical list. Therefore, the emergency nature of the contract didn't require any specific outreach. There are no unresolved property or financial issues in this contract, and the Bureau recommends acceptance.
By Commissioner Davis has made a motion that we adopt agenda item number 5. Commissioner Rivas will second it. Any objection? Without objection, we'll adopt agenda item number 5. Any issue sending number 5 forthwith? We will send number 5 forthwith. Agenda item number 4, Council District 14, request for removal of a bus bench at 557 South Spring Street, recommending that the board determine to retain the city bus bench located in front of 557 South Spring Street, northwest corner of Spring and 6th Streets in Los Angeles. Sergio, how do I say your last name? Or is it going to be Mr. Oishi?
Good morning. It's Lance Oishi with the Bureau Street Services.
So, Mr. Oishi, we have some cards on this. What we will do is, you can summarize this for us. Then I will go to the cards. And then we may have some questions regarding the issues that are raised in the speaker cards.
Certainly.
Okay?
This bus bench was installed as a part of the city's bus bench program, which was initiated in 2011. This particular bus bench was placed towards the end of the 2-year rollout period for that program in 2013, and it was placed there specifically at the request of a art gallery owner that was immediately behind the bus stop, who had witnessed people waiting for buses and felt sorry for them. So we went ahead and reviewed the site. We found that people were indeed waiting for the bus there, so we had the bus bench placed. And in 2015, I believe in probably about August or so, we received a phone call from a new restaurant proprietor that had opened the restaurant immediately behind the bus stop, adjacent to the art gallery. And that proprietor of the restaurant had mentioned that he had concerns about transient individuals that were harassing his customers there. We met with them several times. We tried to ameliorate the conditions. We added additional, what we call anti-vagrant bars onto the bus bench to prohibit people from trying to sleep on the bench. We increased the maintenance on that particular bus bench. And we also sought other avenues to possibly relocate the bus stop further to the north or to the south with Metro and Dash both. Both transit operators declined to relocate the bus stop, and we continued to monitor the bus stop and found the transit use intermittent. In other words, there wasn't a chronic condition out there where we had someone encamped for days, where the contractor was not able to keep up with the contract standards to properly maintain the bench. And so we told the restaurant proprietor that we wished to retain the bus bench there, and we gave him the option to have a hearing before the board at that time, which he declined. Or we basically did not hear from him after that for a while. Fast forward now to 2016, and apparently the restaurant proprietor and several of the building tenants had retained Kate Bartolo Associates to once again raise the matter to see if we could get the bus bench relocated. We once again went through the process of meeting with them, trying to get Metro and Dash to relocate the bus stop to no avail. And so that's why we're here today, because we were not able to resolve the objection. The staff still notices that the bus stop itself is used by patrons quite a bit. In fact, I think we have over 400 boardings there a day between Metro and Dash. And we've visited the site numerous times. In fact, every time we go back and forth to City Hall, we take the Dash and we go by that bus stop, and we are able to see things. I've gone there as late as 11 o'clock at night to review the location, and as early as 6:30 in the morning to review the location just to see if we have people encamped on the bench that we're not catching during normal business hours, and did not see any type of problems of that nature. And so because of the usage for the bus bench and the fact that it does continue to serve the bus riding public, we are recommending that we retain the bench there.
Lance, go ahead. Would you repeat that last sentence again?
Sure. Because we have not noticed any of the noted issues out there are intermittent in nature, and the bus bench is still used quite heavily by the bus riding public, we're recommending that we retain the bus bench at that location. Also, once again, the contractor has been able to maintain the bench to contract standards. He has not raised any complaints about his inability to maintain the bus bench, which would also be cause for us to remove the bench.
So, would you? Well, all right. Let's go to the anything for Lance before we go to the speakers? We'll start with Commissioner Davis, then Commissioner Jacinto.
Okay, so I definitely understand the Bureau's position to keep the bus bench, because while in fact certainly we want to create an environment that is supportive and conducive for people who potentially may be bothered in some way by an occasional person who happens to be there, as well as we want to make sure that through these public transportation facilities we have support for businesses in the area. I'm concerned about knowing and better understanding if there are any other additional measures that we might be able to employ for this area.
So as far as the bus bench itself goes, once again, when we have site objections like this, our steps are, once again, to add additional possible what we call anti-vagrant bars to keep people from possibly loitering on a bench longer than possible. We look at possibly relocating the bench, and we also look at increasing maintenance visits by the contract. Per contract, Martin Outdoor Media is required to visit the bench at least twice a week to service and maintain it. In this case, they've been going out there 3 or 4 times a week to take care of it and to make sure that the bench is clean and in a well-kept condition.
Do I have a picture of the anti-vagrants bars on here?
I'm not sure if you can see them in the photos that we provided. They're kind of, they're a little low. They're low. They look like armrests, basically, in the middle of the bench. But they are there to prevent someone from lying across the top of the bench.
Oh, I see. Uh-huh.
They're in the photo.
Okay, gotcha.
Okay, Commissioner Jacinto.
Thank you. Lance, can you talk a little bit, you mentioned it briefly, the relocation efforts or process with either Metro or DOT. Can you talk a little bit more about that, sir?
Sure. So one of the possibilities is also to look at relocating the bus stop itself. And if the bus stop is relocated, then we move the bus bench accordingly with it. We looked at the site just to the north of it. There's existing street parking there right now that would be lost because of that. Metro has a concern when bus stops are more or less mid-block, because people tend to jaywalk across the street. And so they're usually reluctant to do that, and that's by moving the bus bench to the north, or the bus stop to the north, it would basically create a mid-block bus stop, and so they're reluctant to do that. To move it to the south side of the intersection, there's a loading zone there's a hotel there, and a number of commercial businesses there as well. There's also curbside parking there. It would displace that. Further down the street, there's also what we call a parklet that is permitted to be out there on Spring Street. And so between those, the loss of parking and the fact that that parklet would force the buses to kind of pull out in the traffic rather abruptly, Metro primarily declined to relocate their bus stop, and basically LA Dot followed Metro's lead in that particular situation.
Understood. Thank you. That's...
Commissioner Rivas? Oh, okay. So let's go to, thank you guys, let's go to the speakers. We may come back with some additional questions. So I've got, let me just kind of figure out what I've got here. So I've got several cards on the same side of the issue, all in favor of removal. And Kate Bartolo is referenced in the board report as representing the applicant. But I've got three people also here representing the applicant, and Kate Bartolo has requested that she go first. Is that okay with the folks that got their cards in earlier? Okay, then Ms. Bartolo, go ahead.
Good morning, Commissioners and City staff. Kate Bartolo and Associates. I'm going to make 5 points, and I'm asking if it's possible if I might have 4 minutes and change. The rest of the other speakers will keep it to the minimum 2 minutes, the maximum 2 minutes.
Okay. You want 4 minutes? You can have 4 minutes.
Thank you very much. Respectfully, the staff throughout this process has been incredibly polite, but we vehemently disagree with their conclusions for several reasons. The key question before you today is, do what are literally egregious acts committed on the bus bench, do they simply reflect the surrounding rough environment of the area, or does the combination of the bench in this location sharply and incessantly exacerbate threats to public health and safety? I would submit this situation is a perfect storm of 3 combined factors: location, the physicality and existence of the bus bench, and the complete lack of LAPD and BID security jurisdiction to do anything about the misuse of the bus bench. First, location. It has long been a problem corner. And here's a key thing that this weekend I only recently learned. We did a survey of the immediate bus stops in the immediate area on Spring and on Main, 5th Street to 7th Street. There wasn't one bus bench. So the argument that this is an extraordinary request or act is simply not true. The norm is a bus stop with no bus bench in this immediate area. Secondly, there are a high concentration of residential hotels in this area. It's one of downtown's most narrow sidewalks and most heavily trafficked intersections for pedestrians, and there's several restaurants nearby. What that means is there's a guarantee if individuals who are non-bus riders want to go to this location that they will be able to encounter people who are specifically there to spend money. They're not just shopping. There are restrooms to use, there's panhandling to occur. There are a variety of things that these combination of factors at this location create. Secondly, bus bench in this location. It's not just a bus bench. When you're dealing with the homeless who have no place to go during the day, and it's not possible for me to be more sympathetic, but it becomes a small beachhead to control. They can use it without limitation on use or frequency, because again, it is not controlled by LAPD or the BID, and there's no discernible policing of this bus bench. They can sit down, pass out, spread belongings, squat for defecation, blast the boombox, all with impunity, and most importantly, they can sit for hours and scout opportunities to stare into the restaurant itself and passerbys to potentially steal, intimidate, or even attack. No bus bench means this. Those same individuals would have to stand, often for hours without respite. They have to be out of pedestrian traffic. And if they lean, sit, or lay against the building, which is what they are wont to do if there is no seating, they are then encroaching on private property, and only then can LAPD ask them to move. There is a distinct lack of jurisdiction, as I indicated. They can sit for hours if they just keep saying the same mantra, I'm waiting for a bus bench. Number four, this poses a daily, constant, incessant, serious to severe public health and safety threat. It is not intermittent as represented by staff. There is a private security guard and community later today who are going to affirm the problems with this bus bench at this location. There is a constant need for cleaning and scrubbing with bleach. The building hoses it down every day, the sidewalk, several times a day. The restaurant owner, Springtime Cafe, pays for its workers to come out. Sometimes they have to take a shovel to pick up the excrement. 66% of the property owners in 200 feet agreed to support this and write letters of support of the request. I'm a former head of that BID. These people rarely agree on anything. Getting 66%, which is 15 property owners, to agree that this is a problem. May I speak for just a few moments more? Just very briefly, I'll wrap up.
How much time do you need to wrap up? One more
About
minute?
a minute.
Go ahead.
This is not a request for an extraordinary action. Bus stop with no bus bench is the norm, not the exception. I believe there's a reasonable care of duty to the bus riders who don't want to use this because of the way it's being abused, and the surrounding community, not the advertisers. There are a variety of legal and code bases for doing this, but just understand, we didn't get to this place right away. We have been working now for over a year. The owner of the restaurant decided not to pursue legal action. Instead, we decided to work through the system, and we've worked vigilantly. I still contend that the ability to move the bus bench a few yards, which still fronts the same building, would be the best remedy. Yes, there may be a loss of parking space or two. I think that's the best remedy. The second remedy that we pursued was any kind of policing action. We were told that was impossible. Again, what is the duty of care to your bus riders and the surrounding community? Thank you very much.
I'm sorry, Ms. Bartolo. I've got a couple of questions for you. So, you had indicated when this 10 closest bus stop locations all have no bench that you
Correct.
Did you say when that study was done, like recently?
This weekend.
This weekend. But you just said that you've been on this for a long time.
Yes.
You've been dealing with the system, what, a year?
Yes.
Why did you wait until the weekend before you came to the hearing?
To be absolutely honest with you, it didn't occur to me that there weren't other bus benches in the area. It honestly didn't.
Okay. Do we have any Metro or DOT folks here? Thank you. Any more questions from Ms. Bartolo? Okay, we'll go to the other speakers. And I tell you, Ms. Bartolo, why I asked the question is had we had more time on this study, I would have had DOT and Metro here.
Understand.
And we don't have that luxury because we just got this when you walked in this morning.
Understand.
Yeah, so, okay, thank you. Before we go to the speakers, Lance or Sergio, I think I know the answer to this, but I'm at least going to tie the record up on it and make it clear on the record. This issue about the 10 closest bus stop locations all have no bench is concerning to me anyway. But who makes the decision? Does BSS, does the Bureau of Street Services, or our contractor contribute at all to the decision as to whether or not there should be a bus bench at any of these other adjacent locations, or is that a DOT and or Metro decision?
It's a primary decision between the Bureau of Street Services and our contractor. One of the things that happens quite frequently for us, and one of the reasons why you do see some bus stops that don't have any furniture at it, is because we have a limited number of furniture.
I'm sorry, what?
We have a limited number of furniture pieces. There's something like 12,000 bus stops within the city of LA, and we only have 4,000 locations where we have furniture at them. So the majority of bus stops are not going to have furniture at them for various reasons. The other thing is that the transit operators often move their bus stops around, and so we could have a bus stop on one corner, and 6 months later it might be someplace else. And so oftentimes we're chasing around the transit operators trying to keep up with them to relocate our furniture accordingly. And so I don't have I'm not sure which bus stops you're looking at right now. I do know that when we went through our rollout phase of the program, both Martin...
Do we have another copy for Lance? Because he can look at it. Well, you can...
I can tell you that Martin Outdoor Media...
We're going to share one of them with you while the speakers are speaking, Lance, because I want to know if there's a transportation reason for any or all of these stops as well. But go ahead. Besides what you do with the contractor, but go ahead.
So, I mean, they've gone out, as has staff, to review locations. When we get requests for specific locations, of course, we try to accommodate those. But like I said, during the rollout period back in 2011 to 2013, the contractor actually went up and down all the streets in downtown LA, and where there were vacant bus stops and the physical capacity to put a bus bench there. In other words, there was no subgrade vaults or poles that would cause some type of disabled access infraction.
You have to have space, and there has to be room, I know.
Right. So in those locations that were permissible, then we went ahead and we did install as many benches as we could during that 2-year period.
Okay. Commissioner Rivas?
I have a question for Lance.
Mr. Oishi?
You're back. Oh, sorry, Mr. Oishi. Ms. Bartolo mentioned that this was considered a narrow sidewalk. And so my question is, does the Bureau of Street Services have like some type of minimum sidewalk width in order to place furniture? Because is this considered blocking pedestrian traffic? In addition, because the restaurant does have some outdoor seating.
Sure. When we first, first of all, when we first installed the bus bench out there in 2013, the restaurant was not in place at that time. Also, when we initially met with the restaurant owner in 2014, he did not have a sidewalk dining permit at that time, so there's still no furniture out there. The sidewalk itself, I can't remember what the exact dimension. It's at least 10 feet, if not 12 feet wide there. The minimum width that we could put a bus bench on is 7.5 feet and still meet disabled access requirements. And so from that perspective, the sidewalk environment is wide enough for us to place a bus bench there, which is why we did it. With the advent of the sidewalk dining furniture, however, it did decrease the amount of queuing space on the sidewalk. And so although it is kind of pinched down a bit, it still does meet disabled access requirements, although it's minimal at this point.
Thank you. Anything further? One moment, Mr. Luigi. So, an interesting question, or you raise an interesting point. So the sidewalk dining permit, the restaurant, okay, chronologically, bus bench goes in, then restaurant comes along.
That's right.
Okay? Then this sidewalk dining permit is allowed.
That's correct.
And even though the sidewalk dining permit is there with the bus bench, there's still the minimum amount of requirement for the bus bench, correct?
Yes, sir. I believe there's either 4 or 5 feet between the bus bench and the closest dining table for the restaurant.
Under city process, let's assume a different scenario for a moment. If that bus bench, which was there before, if the sidewalk dining permit had encroached upon the perimeter required by the city for the bus bench, would that have been grounds to deny the sidewalk dining permit?
That's correct.
Okay. So the restaurant in this instance, so the bus bench would have trumped the sidewalk dining permit, or better said, a bus bench can trump a sidewalk, or can supersede a sidewalk dining permit in another circumstance. It didn't happen here because there was enough parameter.
Correct. Generally, existing conditions will trump over proposed conditions. So if someone came in to apply for a sidewalk dining permit after the fact and there was enough space, then they would allow it. If there was not, then the Bureau of Engineering that actually issues that permit would not allow that.
Okay. All right. Thank you. So I have 3 people that have listed springtime. I have Sean Lila Hazarian, Brenda Ochoa, and Nima Christensen. You all can go in whichever order you would prefer. Whoever wants to come first can come first. Just let me know who you are when you get here.
Morning, guys. My name is Nima Christensen. I am a store manager at Springtime Cafe. I've been employed there a few weeks after opening, so about 2.5 years. I also live in downtown LA. When it comes to the sidewalk, it's worse than anything else I see in downtown. The smell, the belongings, the stuff people put on these benches. They basically stand there for hours and stake us out to steal the tip drawers, steal camp products. And when I used to call the green shirts, the security, and the LAPD and the Metro Police, and the response is every time they show up, they can't do anything because these people are waiting for the bus. As shown in the pictures, they're obviously not waiting for the bus. They be there all day from the morning we open till night. There's one gentleman, he shows up every few weeks. He does stand at the bus bench, puts his facing inside against the actual bench itself, puts his arm against it, looks at our female customers sitting inside the store, puts his hand in his pocket and starts masturbating. And when I do call the green shirts, they say they cannot move him because he tells them he's waiting for the bus bench. So I've just lost the power to call them because they give me the same response every single time. They can't do anything because these people are waiting for the bus.
Thank you, sir. Any questions for him? All right, thank you.
Good morning. My name is Brenda Ochoa, and I'm one of the managers at Springtime in New York. And I've worked there for 2 years, often from 10 in the morning to about 8 or 9. I live downtown, so I do know the conditions of downtown, but the bench, just a few yards, is definitely different. I often do not feel safe, especially at night, and I am not alone in my fear. We do have a very high turnover of the front of the house staff. The back of the house has been there for about 2 years and over. The front of the house staff, after an incident, they sometimes won't come back to work. Many of the story, there's many stories, and actually one for me stands out. One woman, she was waiting at the bus bench, and she was covered in feces. I don't know how things like that happen, but she was covered in feces from her hair to her clothing, sitting at the bus bench. She tried to get on the bus. Obviously, she was denied. She sat back down, came back into the restaurant. We were full, and everybody just got up and left. That's something really serious to consider as well. Some of these individuals, they'll sit on the bench, and they're watching us to see if they can maybe steal a tip jar, as Nima said. And recently, one man actually came in, sat down, and I asked him, would you like to order something? Seating is for customers. He threw the chair at me, and he ran out. And then another time, I was making deliveries, because that is part of my description. A man who had been sitting on the bench for hours, he got up. As soon as I crossed the street, he got up, and he was following me.
2 minutes.
Go ahead and you can finish your point, and then
Okay.
we'll be done.
Thank you so much. And he was following me to the parking structure where we do keep the delivery vehicle. I ran straight into the security, where the security guard was, and that was the only way that the man was, he was able to scare him off, and I was able to continue what I was doing. So,
Thank you, ma'am.
my pleasure. Thank you.
I have Sean Lilazarian.
Morning, my name is Sean. Lolazarian. I'm one of the managers at Springtime Cafe. I've been there since opening days, and I also live in downtown. I guess we're all familiar with the situations in downtown, but the difference with the bus bench, we obviously get a lot of incidents on daily basis in regards to this bus bench. And I know gentlemen mentioned that they drive by there once or twice a day and they don't see anything. We are there all day, every day. And as you can see in these pictures, there are multiple people who camp out at this bench for weeks. I've called DOT patrol, and I've seen them on the street a couple of times, and I've mentioned it to them when these people were camping there, and they never showed up to do anything. The challenge comes in that if it's a regular situation with any homeless person, we call the green shirt or security or the building, and they would ask them to, not be there, and they move on. But once they sit at the bus bench, now it's a public property, so nobody can ask them to move, even if they're sitting there for all day. So that becomes a situation that they sit there and they come back to store, and as soon as the security comes in, they go back and sit at the bus bench and they pretend like they're waiting there. There are people that they're there at least once or twice a week with a huge boombox and playing music. We have people sitting outside that they get uncomfortable. There are people sitting at the bus bench that they keep coming to the patio and asking people for the food or money. It only makes everything, as Brenda mentioned, the turnover, if you check on Craigslist, we have an ad running every week or every 2 weeks because we are constantly hiring for front of the house. Our turnover is about 120%.
Thank you, sir. Patty Berman.
Good morning, Commissioners. My name is Patty Berman. I am the president of the Downtown Los Angeles Neighborhood Council. I'm here not representing the council today. I want to make that clear. But I live on that corner. I take the buses from that corner. I'm a good downtowner. I try to keep my car away from the streets as much as I possibly can. I know a lot of other people who are in the area who come. Being the president of the neighborhood council means that people complain to you about what they don't like in their neighborhood. I walk by this bus bench probably 6 times a day easily because of the type of work that I do. I do a lot of walking between places, and I have never walked past the bus bench when there wasn't someone sitting there who was obviously not waiting for a bus. The truth is, those of us who do wait for buses there would not sit on that bench because we understand the types of activities that go on there. It's not sanitary, it's a health hazard. So my position on this is I am representing the people who own the buildings there. They are my stakeholders. The people who live in those buildings, they are my stakeholders, all of whom find that corner because of that bus bench to be something to be avoided. I can't avoid it. The front door of my building is right down there. I have to walk past there to get almost anywhere, and it is really bad. The smells, the sights, the understanding of the health concerns that surround that bus bench are enormous. And those of us who live there, I'm sorry for the restaurant, but I really care more about the people who live there and actually do want to take that bus, because that bus bench doesn't make it better for the people who want to take the bus. It makes it harder for them. And I would hope that you would take that all into consideration. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you. Commissioner Cinto?
Thank you. Ms. Berman, thank you for your testimony. You say you're speaking as a resident and a bus rider as opposed to on behalf of the neighborhood council?
Right. The neighborhood council would not have had this in time to make a decision on something like this, so I cannot represent them.
Even in a year?
So the neighborhood council?
We were not presented with this a year ago. I didn't realize that there was a procedure involved with it. All I know is that there has been a lot of problems on that corner. And since I'm just the president of a neighborhood council, I don't get involved in everything that people complain
Ms. Berman,
about.
do you have a process for vetting these issues in the neighborhood council?
If things are brought to us, yes. This was not brought to us. But if things are brought to us by the stakeholders, we have a way of vetting it. Our normal procedure would be to write a letter asking that it be looked into. That procedure would take 6 weeks to 2 months at the outside because of the types of process we have to go through.
I think sitting from this seat that would, this egregious situation, this public health safety issue would warrant that discussion.
It definitely would, but we're dealing with many others too. Excuse me. So what we normally do is when stakeholders come to our meetings and ask us to deal with it, we've got a bunch of unsafe intersections that we're dealing with right now. We have a large number of things like that. And just because I live on this corner and it's a problem for me doesn't mean that it gets to, use your word again, trump the other things that we're working on. As a stakeholder down here, that bus bench has been a nightmare. Personally, I wasn't sure that it could be removed because of things that I've heard about Metro's policies on that. But it is definitely not an asset to the community or to the bus.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for the questions, Commissioner Santos. So we have Yaniv. And I would say your last name, but I can't read it. I'm sorry. You can share it for us for the record, though.
It's Yaniva Binair, and I'm from DTLA Management. I represent the owner of 3 buildings on that corner, including where the bench is. I'll keep it short, and I'll surmise what other people said. People that use the bench actually don't sit on it because it's never in a state that anybody here would feel comfortable sitting on it. What happens is they actually stand behind it. You usually have someone homeless on the bench. When I walk there, I've been living downtown 11 years. I work and live here, and you cannot pass. There were several times because of how the restaurant's located and the bench that you just step down to the road, which is obviously unsafe in terms of pedestrian traffic, especially for that corner that has a lot of accidents and a lot of pedestrian traffic. In addition to that, the restaurant had a lease there before the bench was located, and from my understanding, the permit for the outdoor seating was submitted about 10 months or 9 months before the bench was there, but I think it was not approved until after. So that's also something to take into consideration, that if that permit was approved sooner and laid out, probably the bench wouldn't be there because, as they said, it's existing conditions before. So obviously now both conditions exist, and it's just unsafe. The area and downtown in general has issues. Some of them were brought up, but the location of that bench just makes it worse in that location. Across the street, we have less issues than we have there. It's exactly the same corner, same amount of traffic, no benches. So that's about it. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, sir. And I have Akil Sadal.
I'm speaking on behalf of Akil. His second language is English. My name is Akil Sadal. I am a private security consultant working for Babel Security Service. We represent the owner of the 557 Spring building and several other property owners in the historic core downtown. I can personally confirm that this is one of the 2 worst problem corners that I patrol. Be prepared to state, my shift is, I pass bus bench while on patrol about every 45 minutes. This particular problem at this location of this bus bench, there are not many places to sit down in the historic core, and locations are near restaurant and the most popular. The bus bench has become a place for drug users and problem drinkers, and are severely under the influence and homeless, mentally ill, to park themselves there, often for hours on end. The bus bench is also a place for drug dealers to sell drugs, daytime or nighttime. And there's nothing we can do. So as long as they say they are waiting for the bus, we cannot force them to leave. If they catch them in the act of a drug deal or any illicit act, I can arrest them, but it really does but it really is hard to catch them in the act. They are skilled at spotting me and know just when to run. I cannot tell you how many times I have talked to the LAPD and the BID security staff, and they say the exact same thing. They are sympathetic, but there is nothing they can do. We have long since stepped in, even complaining to them. And no, I never see the MTA or street services patrol the area. Due to the same problems happen at the bus stop where there are no bus benches, sure, sometimes, but not in the same way at all. The bus bench is a place to sit, sleep, pass out, defecate, or pee, or place your belongings or drug paraphernalia atop the bench. There are too many stories to tell, but this is just one. Last week, a non-bus rider was so drunk he
Sir,
rolled...
you have 30 seconds to finish, because we've heard all this, so... Yeah,
15
go ahead.
seconds. He was so drunk that he actually rolled off the bench into the street, and we had to actually assist him before getting hit by a bus. Thank you.
Thank you.
Any questions? I have a couple questions for Ms. Bortolo. So, are you the person that provided all three of these sheets today? Okay. You answered my questions about the addresses on the 10 most closest bus locations. Are all of these other two sheets, are these all the bus bench that's the subject or of the hearing today, or are
Solely this bus bench.
I'm sorry?
Solely this bus
Okay,
bench.
so both sheets are solely this bus bench.
Correct.
Okay, thank you. Does anybody else have any questions for Ms. Portillo? Commissioner Davis?
Ms. Portillo, your position is what again? I apologize for.
Excuse me?
Your position. You're with which
Oh, I
association?
am a private consultant. I am representing Springtime in New York Cafe.
Oh, okay. You're representing the cafe. Have you noticed any assistance being given to the area in terms of the bid? Were you a member of the bid?
Of the bid? Yes, I was president at one point for 2 years.
That's what I thought. Now, does the bid have any resources in terms of cleanup crews and that kind of thing?
They provide clean and safe services. The problem with the safe services, the security, they're called the green shirts, is that they have absolutely no ability to do anything at this location because it's not just a public sidewalk, it's city-owned property. And if someone says, we're waiting for the bus, there's nothing more they can do.
But that cleaning services does clean the city sidewalk area.
Yes, they do. That is in addition to all the individual work done by Springtime. Correct.
So have they targeted this as a special area of work?
Yes.
They have?
Yes.
And they have been unable to manage this particular area reasonably on behalf of the bid. Is that
correct? We've had multiple conversations. This is the best they can do. They can do no more. They are on $1 million budget for what should be a $2 to $3 million budget.
Yeah, but I mean, we've got to get some results in terms of the service that they're providing to the bid. I mean, are they cleaning it regularly? I know you have perhaps no way to know what their task orders are in terms of covering the area. In other words, what I'm asking, do they clean it at 6 a.m., at 12 noon, and 12 midnight? When do they go out to
I can't give you the frequency. What they do is they pick up trash. Oh, yes, please. He's the treasurer of the BID.
I'm also a board member on the BID, and I'm the
Wonderful.
treasurer for the BID. Unfortunately, as Kate said, and I'll testify to that, the budget doesn't exist for high maintenance areas like that.
Right.
The BID focuses on a fairly large area with a lot of trash and sidewalk cleaning to do. There's regular pressure washing, there's a lot of regular maintenance and cleaning, there's emptying of all the trash cans and picking up all of that. But unfortunately, as the BID, we do not have the resources for a problematic area like that.
Well, here's the concern. If we're investing $1 million on behalf of the bid, and the goal of the security cleanup team is to assist us, and secondly, this regional area has presented itself as an urgency. Now, every good organization would respond to its urgency. It's no way we should be spending $1 million and this problem not minimally be addressed in the work that we're doing. this fits right into the mission of why we have invested the $1 million, right?
Again, the mission is, clean and safety. And to keep that area clean is a big part of why the BID exists. I agree with that.
And more specifically, the clean team, for lack of the appropriate name, is the task force that is to enact what it is that we are expecting to be done. And to hear that they are not even, are they even cleaning out in that area?
They are cleaning
They
it,
are cleaning
but
out
again,
the area.
the thing is that you are talking about multiple times a day is the amount of cleaning that's required there.
Sure.
The clean team does not revolve around that corner or around that area. It's very hard for the BID to be able to do that because then you are neglecting other areas of the district by focusing on one bench and going there 3 times a day. As a result of that, as if I switch hats as the property owner there and as the restaurant does, we supplement cleaning by washing off that area several times a day.
Sure.
It's as a property owner that the property taxes go to the BID directly.
Sure.
And the treasurer of the BID, I understand that it's not feasible for the BID to deal with a problem like this on an ongoing basis. If they get called out, they come in terms of security. They come in terms of cleaning, and they do their job. But the amount of calls that they receive, it's just unrealistic to be able to
Well,
to
here's
deal with
what
it.
I'm getting at. I think in and of itself, obviously the clean team is not going to be totally responsible, but they have to be a part of the solution. And I want it to be very clear that they are a part of the solution. There are some other questions I have that perhaps the Bureau needs to get involved in. I see this collectively as a village of service delivery, with the bid's responsibility being one. I have some other concerns, and perhaps those questions aren't for you, and they may be for the Bureau. And, in terms of LASA, we have a home list. This is more of an issue about not simply the bus stop. It's an issue about service delivery at many levels of government. My question is also about the homeless services. So what you have described has been an education on the demographics and the very specifics of a homeless problem that perhaps the mayor and the city council and even the county boards of supervisors have begun to address, at least in our recent public votes over the last couple of elections, from funding in H and funding in Triple H, both measures of which we have funding for capital improvements of building, hopefully, housing, and then secondly, mental health, which you all have spoken to. And so we're not surprised with what we see. To that end, I'm concerned about LASA in terms of what social services, and I don't know if that's a question for you, and maybe I will address the rest of my questions for the Bureau.
Yeah.
But thank you for your feedback
And I have
on the clean
about
team,
LASA
but I
as
do
well,
think
but
that your organization is also a part of the solution.
I agree. Thank you.
Thank you. Just a couple of things. And sir, would you state your name again for the record? We make an oral record that's available online.
Sure,
for
it's Yaniv
Infinity,
Abiner.
but so go ahead.
Yaniv Abiner.
Okay, great, thank you. Just so I can let our other people that are here for other items know so they can head on for the rest of their day if they're still here. On agenda item number 3 that was continued, agenda item number 2, the council office is asking that we continue it until Wednesday, June 14th. Is that the correct date there, Dr. Campos, on Wednesday, June 14th?
That is correct, yes.
Okay, there apparently is a meeting today between, coincidentally, between CD 14 and AT&T anyway. So this will be addressed, and it will be rescheduled. Number 2 is rescheduled for June 14th. Wait. Number 3 was the one that we continued. Which one's Spring Street?
Item number 3 is Spring Street, 855 South Spring Street. That was continued to Monday, June 19th.
Right.
Item number 2 is 1060 South Hill Street, and that is now being considered to be continued to Wednesday, June 14th.
Correct. And then number 1 we passed. All right, thank you for the folks that had to hang out for that. Now, going back to our discussion, Commissioner Jacinto.
Thank you, President James. I just had a question of Ms. Bartolo. Ms. Bartolo, have you engaged the council office on this matter?
We have, and they asked that they be kept abreast, but they were concerned about taking a champion position with regard to this issue. If I could also address the
Sorry,
question.
I couldn't understand what word you said. Taking what?
They were concerned about being seen as championing this specific location.
Oh, okay.
And so
Go ahead.
they recognized it's a problem location, but they felt a little bit uncomfortable taking an advocacy position. I also want to get back very briefly to DLANC, the Neighborhood Council. The way that I work is that I really believe in early outreach and being transparent. Early on, I actually went to the head of the planning committee at DLANC, and I was told that they were in a state of overwhelm. And by the way, it wasn't a year ago. We didn't submit the application until February, I think, of this year. We were trying other remedies prior to that. But
wouldn't those other remedies include the neighborhood council?
Well, the remedies were actually relocation of the bus bench.
But why would the neighborhood council be left out of the discussion?
Well, they weren't left out of the discussion per se. They indicated that they had a caseload that they couldn't handle it. And they felt, and at the time, we were also trying to work out other alternatives, whether it was policing or whether it was relocation of the bench just a few yards north.
All right.
Okay. Colleagues, I want to thank you, Ms. Bartolo. The testimony has been compelling. The public safety, the health issues, public health issues are all there. In terms of where I feel this is at, I think part of it is half-baked. I don't think that the advocacy has been full and pursued in order to effectuate. I don't feel that the precedence of moving a bus stop is a good thing for our city. I think that the primary reason why it exists, its functionality exists, and that's to provide a place for bus riders. From the testimony of our staff, I believe that is the primary reason. The issues that mitigate the public health and safety issues have not been fully pursued, in my mind. And so I am inclined to uphold the presence of this bench and work systematic, because I feel our responsibility as a board is to be engaged as well in working with our different departments, whether it be LAPD or LASA, or any other environmental agencies, in order to provide a mitigation effort that allows the bench to provide its primary function, as well as provide safety for the business, which we are very pro-business in this city as well. So I want to find a balance, but I'm ready to move this forward.
I wanted to ask.
Okay, well, one moment, Commissioner Davis. I'm going to put on the table what I'm thinking at this. First of all, I agree with you, Commissioner Cinto, that the precedent of, look, we have street furniture and bus benches for a purpose. And I was disturbed by, as I mentioned earlier, by the fact that the 10 closest bus stop locations have no bench. And so there are a few areas that I still have questions. I want to know why the 10 closest bus stop locations have no bench. And so, Lance, I'm going to give this, I think you have this. Okay. And so for each of these, whether we do it on this agenda item or another, I'd like to know from your perspective why these locations have no bench. But I also want to get a sense from DOT and or Metro, their policy regarding whether or not you put in a bus bench. We've had this issue before in other parts of the city. Most recently, probably in CD5 near Century City. And they had ridership numbers and they had general data regarding age range. It was my concern is that we don't have street furniture for people that need to be able to take a seat in between, or while they're waiting for a bus or in between connections. And I want those people to be accommodated. So there's the transportation issue and the purpose of a bus bench that needs to be addressed, that's in front of us right now. Because if this is the only bus bench in that radius, then that maybe tells me something. Then the other issue is, I'm sorry that the neighborhood council feels at capacity with their agenda item, but this is an issue that in the time that has been this issue has been at ahead or at issue, as we say in the practice of law, that the neighborhood council, that's what I see. One of the reasons for neighborhood councils, I've been very familiar with them for many years, and I want to hear from the neighborhood council on this issue. And so I think I know what the neighborhood council would say, but because I have the president of the neighborhood council here today, but she's here in her individual capacity, and the neighborhood council hasn't taken a vote. So I am disinclined to move this bench without clarity from the neighborhood council, because the fact that they haven't taken it up could be that they're at capacity. It could be that they don't want to take it up. It could be that a few people don't want to take it up, and a few people do. I don't know yet. But and before I vote one way or the other, I would be more willing to continue the item to give the neighborhood council the time to do so, and maybe that gives some leverage to the neighborhood council in finding a way to prioritize it. Maybe it doesn't, but at least it's a strategic attempt to do so. Because I also understand the concerns of the business, and why is it this one bus bench? It's going to be, I think these problems are going to be exacerbated in front of this business if there's just one bus bench that's available, because undoubtedly the bus bench is, in addition to being used for people waiting for a bus, is also being used for purposes that it is not intended. And that's a problem too. And it may be a sense that there might be a better alternative in the area to serve the bus riders, but we don't have any data on that. We just have photographs. And Metro and DOT, when we've decided bus bench issues before, Metro and or DOT came with data. We don't have any of that here. Commissioner Rivas and then Commissioner Davis.
Thank you. Yeah, my concern has been in terms of the other locations that don't have bus benches and why we don't have them there. And why is it just this specific location that we have a bench? I mean, I don't know how that decision is made, and is it per request because it was requested only? But then I guess, has there been attempts to relocate this bench to a better location? Since there's none in, within that area, right? Or maybe to a location where it's not in front of a restaurant, right?
Mr. Ushi, yeah, to the ones that do you happen to know off the top of your head on some of these sites, or even all of them? What do you know?
So at least two of the sites, we already have what we call rapid bus furniture, the rapid bus stops.
Say, the acoustics are bad.
We have furniture that's called a rapid bus station or shelter. So they actually have furniture at the station already. So those locations where we've had furniture, once again, because there's a limited amount of resources, we're trying to hit as many bus stops as we can. If the bus stop already had a shelter there, then we would have looked elsewhere to put a bench. And so the location specifically is the one at 5th Street east of Main, which is in front of Kohl's, the historic Kohl's restaurant.
You can see the
rapid bus flagpole there. And also the other one on 5th Street east of Main, on right below, the one that's in front of 464 Burgers, I guess, looks like. Some of the other locations, like the one that's just off to the right center of the page, it's described as in front of the Artisan House. That particular dash bus stop was relocated there. It used to be on the far side or north side of the intersection. And so now that the sidewalk dining is there, we could certainly take a look at it. And in fact, I have Randy Smith here with Martin Outdoor Meeting here with me, by the way, who can be willing to come and answer any questions from the company perspective. But we will certainly go out and look at these locations to see if we can put benches in there, and if physically capable, we will do so. We do have a best bench that's at 7th and Broadway, so it's right around the corner. It's within the same radius that we're talking about. It's not photographed here. I'll also note that the two locations in the lower right-hand corner are actually one and the same, so in front of the CVS store. And so some of the other locations, if you can look at it, we can't put the bus bench right in front of someone's front door. And so if you have a number of shops that are closely spaced together, it's one of those things that for access to the building, we won't put the bench right in front of someone's front door. So there's things that, there's prohibitions not only longitudinally along the frontage of the street, but also laterally, what's going on behind the street, the bus stop that we need to take a look at. And we do examine all those things when we cite the bus benches. And we'll certainly go back and revisit these sites to see if we can possibly fit additional bus benches in there.
Thank you.
I just wanted to add, good morning, Mr. President, Commissioners. Thank you for the time. I just want to remind the Commission.
We need to know who you are, sir, for the record.
I'm sorry, I'm Randy Smith, and I'm the CEO of the contractor, Martin Outdoor Media.
You could fill out a speaker card when we're done here, but go ahead.
Okay, thank you. I just wanted to remind the Commission that we do not decide where the bus stops go. That is selected by Metro and the transportation people.
And that's based on the metrics data that I was mentioning before, yeah.
Exactly.
On who rides, how many ride, where they need, how much space between, all that, yeah.
So I know that Lance has conversations with them, but he doesn't have the ability to order where that stop goes. Most of the time, all he can do is have a conversation. So I just want to make sure that that's clear. The other thing is that I'm as surprised as you are to hear the number of 10 locations that don't have benches. And I can pledge to you right now that if there are any legal locations that are in any of those 10 where we can put a bench, we will do that as part of the mitigation for this. I suspect that there are ADA issues or other regulatory reasons why the benches can't be there.
ADA issues, accessibility issues, right?
Correct. But that would undoubtedly account for some percentage of it. But as Lance said, the transportation authorities, I'm sure it'll come as no shock to you, don't really coordinate with us or with Lance. They will move, they'll put stops in, they'll take them out, they don't tell us. And so it's quite possible that there is some mitigation we can do here by putting in those locations. And I can certainly assure you that we will do that, but as Lance said, we have to do a survey. And of course, anything we do is with Lance's permission and in coordination. So we'll do the best we can, and we will certainly look at that. I just wanted to mention that to you.
Thank you, sir. Commissioner Davis, you have questions for the Bureau.
Yeah, I have a lot of questions. Certainly I agree with the commissioners, each of whom have spoken in terms of their position and as where we are on this particular item. And I don't see a reason to change at this point, but there are some very fundamental questions around what kind of solution can be employed to better manage the situation. And I talked about the bid, but I had some questions about LASA in terms of if in fact we've called them in terms of them helping in some kind of way with the individuals who happen to be homeless, who are there and frequent there. The other issues include the County Department of Health Services, specifically environmental health. To what degree do they have oversight? They certainly have oversight over restaurants. And to the degree that this may have some external impact, if any, how are they involved? MTA certainly makes the program decision between where bus stops are implemented or not, but is there some need for some kind of plan in the downtown area, which has been raised by this commission about the lack of benches? Should we have some kind of planning with MTA and the city of Los Angeles about what we've envisioned about bus stops in downtown Los Angeles? Is there some systematic approach to implementing bus stops? And then what degree are senior citizens who legitimately want to have a place to sit down after working so hard in society, and now they have to go home and they're not driving. Do they deserve to have a bus stop, a place to sit in the sunset of life in this city where they've paid taxes perhaps most of their adult lives? And then what about our own city services? The Clean Street Program, the Mayor's Program, which has done an outstanding job in being a significant part of cleaning up homeless encampments. Well, to what degree is this particular issue involved? And would it be something to which we could have some response from Clean Streets on that? So these are all unresolved questions I have in my mind. But again, I agree with each of the commissioners here. I've heard nothing in terms of those areas that would make me feel comfortable that we have tried our best working collectively together in those areas to manage this problem. So therefore, why would we move it if we've not explored these already available options to better manage this problem?
Thank you, Commissioner Davis. Let me tell you what I would propose, because I'm still open to moving it, but I don't want to move it without hearing from at least DOT and possibly Metro. We have a good relationship with Metro. They were just here for a very long hearing on Friday, so we have access to the professionals at Metro on this issue, as well as to DOT. And so, Lance and Sergio, what I'll do, my recommendation is going to be to put this over for the neighborhood councils meet monthly. And, ma'am, I have one question for you, and that's yeah. So, do you meet 12 months a year?
We meet 12 months a year on the second Tuesday of every month. It is too late for anything to go into June's agenda. If I can receive anything in the way of a request to look into this matter, I can have it to you after our July meeting, which is the second Tuesday of July. I have no idea what the date is.
Okay. So, yes, you have that request from me.
Would it be, thank you, and would it be possible
on behalf of the board
for me to get the information on to whom, who the various parties are, to whom this letter would be sent, so that we can make sure that it goes out properly? Are you holding this file open for us to put one in? If we have that information, it makes it easier for us to distribute.
Sure, I'll give it to you right now. Dr. Campos, do you have cards on you?
I do, I believe, yes.
Okay. So our executive officer is Fernando Campos. And so what I would do is the request from myself on behalf of the board, well, to do something on behalf of the board. Anybody disagree with a request to the neighborhood council to agendize this? Okay, so the Board of Public Works has requested that the neighborhood council agendize this item, and then the position letter could go to our executive officer, Fernando Campos, who is here.
All right.
And he'll give you his contact information by way of his business card. In the meantime, and you're the second Tuesday of the month?
Yes, this will go through our Livability Committee, which should be meeting next week sometime, and their recommendations will be brought forth to the second Tuesday of July.
Okay, so the second Tuesday of July, Dr. Campos, what date is that?
That would be Tuesday, July 11th.
Tuesday, July 11th. So let's put this on for Wednesday, July 19th. All right, did I calculate that accurately?
You did.
Okay. So this item will be continued to Wednesday, July 19th, at which point we will hear from Metro and DOT and the Bureau regarding these
And
other...
would you like me to be present at that meeting as well?
If you wouldn't mind, that would be helpful. We'll have Metro DOT here, as well as a representative, yourself or anybody else that you designate, representative from the neighborhood council. What we will not do is repeat the testimony that we had regarding the scope of the problem. We understand the scope of the problem. It's getting to some of these other issues to maybe work out a resolution to this is what we'll focus on, one way or
Thank you.
the other. All right, thank you. Is that okay, colleagues? Okay. All right, so then that'll be the order. Thank you, everyone, for your participation and your time today. Dr. Campos, are we clear of the desk?
Yes, you have.
Okay, then we are adjourned. Thank you, everyone.
Mr. President,
Yes.
just to remind you.
Oh, yes.
We do have a special request.
Yes, we have, hold on, everybody, if you could. I'm sorry, I get so enthralled in the hearing. We have a special adjournment this morning. We are adjourning in memory of Michael Isaac Prieto, who is the devoted husband of Martha Prieto, who has been with us here in the Board of Public Works for many years. Martha is a member of our family here, and Martha, we're so sorry for your loss. Michael passed away on May 31st, 2017. He was just 58 years old, born February 16th, 1959. Michael had two sons, Michael and Alexander, and two grandchildren, Jacob and Damien. The Board of Public Works, of course, is extending our condolences to the family of Michael Isaac Prieto and Martha Prieto. So we adjourn this morning in Michael's honor.